Hey guys, April 17th, today is Wednesday, 13 market moves daily analysis. Guys, there's a lot of stuff that has taken place since yesterday. So pay very close attention as we're going through some key observations right here. Top 3 observations from yesterday. Number 1, financials failed to surrender despite decreasing revenue numbers. So one thing that we have discussed is, look, we're trying to determine the predominant behavior in financials, and right now, we have a lot of mixed results as far as how different financials report to earnings. So without financials making a reversal, it's going to be very difficult for the market to drop from here. A little bit more on that in just a little bit. Now, seeing some definite signs of a lot of institutional money coming out of healthcare sector. And the ultimate question is, if they're taking money on such crazy volume, which we have not seen in years from the healthcare sector, where is that money going to go? Because institutional investors, they have to be making money. They have to place that money somewhere. So if we can determine exactly where that money is going, then we may be able to put together some really crazy trades here. So far, what we are observing is money starting to slowly move into growth stocks. And if that trend is going to continue, we're going to have two situations. Number one, banking stocks are not reversing and falling. And number two development, we could see technology stocks going higher. If technology stocks go higher, then the market does have a very high probability of moving to highs. All-time highs, that is. So number 3, Netflix fails to drop despite mediocre report. And we're going to talk about specifically how to play Netflix earnings this morning. Now, some trades that we're considering for today is AMED, ASML, and IBM. More on that in just a second. So first, before we dive in, here's a quick lesson on chart tops. Can you think of one stock that has a chart identical to this one? Now check this out, Humana, right? This is Humana from August, September, October. Look at this part of the chart right here. Look at this particular candle that is sticking out right here, guys. Okay? Very, very important image that I would like for you to just even print it out and post it somewhere, because this is a definite textbook example of a top formation. So let me show you which stock resembles this top formation right now. It's actually Workday, right? If you take a closer look, it's pretty much identical characteristics on this chart. And look what we've got. We've got this bearish reversal candle right here. If we point this out in this chart right here, again, where does this candle take place? Right over here. Now, again, the most important thing to keep in mind at all times is tops, they do take time to form. As you can see, it had multiple drops right here in the event of Humana. When the market was dropping, it just kept failing to drop. It's been the best sector during the market crash in October, November, December. But when they do begin to unwind, it does happen pretty quick. As you can see, let me show you exactly what happened after that top formation, right? Humana drops from 320s, 340s, all the way to 235, 230 level. So, and that is what we're saying is going to happen here with Workday. Does not necessarily mean that it's going to drop today. As a matter of fact, things are looking super bullish for the market this morning. I'm going to share some observations on that, but it is the sign of a top forming. So some tops, they could go on for another week, another 2 weeks, but keep this on the radar, because once it drops, we could see some crazy swings in some of these cloud stocks. It could look like this. Again, timing the skis, so we're going to monitor these very, very closely. Okay, financials failed to reverse, but they are facing some major resistance levels. So just because the financials are failing to reverse and go lower yesterday, it does not mean that all of a sudden automatically going to go sky high. So we're not actually considering taking and reversing the trade here and jumping on the call side in financials, by no means. But what we are saying is clearly, yesterday, actually Bank of America, right, it opened at 29.90 and then pre-market, and then it dropped all the way pretty much to this 28.77. So that's a dollar move. Dollar move for Bank of America is a pretty huge move. And then by the end of the day, it finished at the highs at 29.88. Now again, it's facing some major resistance levels, so most likely it could just be going sideways. And then sideways, guys, it's not a good idea to trade directional options in a sideways type formation. So JP Morgan back to 111. So, but again, hitting this major resistance levels, and it's doing so on lower volume in comparison to a day ago. So it doesn't mean that all of a sudden JP Morgan is going to go to 115, 120. However, it is holding this gap that was created after the earnings report. So could we see some sideways action between 108 and 112 range for some time now? Yes, very likely. Now, here's what's happening with Morgan Stanley report pre-market. It's kind of drawing a move 11, so a potential reversal that we're observing in a lot of financials on Monday when they were initially popping higher and selling off. It's very likely to happen here in the case of Morgan Stanley, so we're either looking still for a reversal on Morgan Stanley or sideways. We're not trading this by no means, guys. This is just for observation purposes. We're discussing this. So as a result, so far we've had a ton of financial stocks reported earnings. Here's the main issue, okay? They are likely to trend sideways without making any significant moves from here. The after earnings moves in financials have been very mixed without a distinguished predominant behavior. Now, it's best to focus on other sectors for now and keep an eye on the tops developing in financials. So even though the market looks bullish, even though we're seeing the technology stocks have the potential and some catalysts to move higher because the institutional investors do need to place their money somewhere, okay, we're still very much in the bear mode. However, short-term wise, we may be considering buying some calls on some names, and we're going to be very specific on which, when, and how. So here's the situation. To get the higher probability trade right now on the short side, it's best to bet against the sector where majority of the stocks are impacted by heavy institutional selling. Now, looking at the results from Netflix yesterday, we're not getting a ton of institutional selling. We'll examine the chart closely in just a second. Now, the best trade from yesterday was UNH. And if we examine UNH, yes, it is healthcare. So we know which sector to focus on if you guys want to put some bets, if you want to buy some puts, if you want to keep shorting some of these stocks, this would be the right sector to focus on, is the healthcare sector. Some of you are probably thinking, well, I missed on this UNH trade yesterday, so what do I do now? So here's the solution. First, let's understand what was said in the video yesterday just to clarify. UNH had a very bearish chart. Pre-market, after the earnings announcement, it was bouncing higher. So this is the slide that I was showing you yesterday. This was the action in UNH at about 6:30 in the morning. When we posted the actual trade breakdown at this time, we said, look, it's likely to go to 238, 240, and then a reverse, and possibly drop all the way to 210. So this is exactly, not exactly, but very closely what happened. So for those of you who took the trade, congratulations. Okay, the 230 puts made in excess of 800%. You know, the 235 puts made in excess of 300% if you were getting into the trade. Now, here's how the picture looks. It does look like it's at a temporary bottom, so we are expecting a bounce. Understanding this, it's very easy to partake in any future trades of any healthcare stocks that are announcing. So if you have any healthcare stocks that are announcing earnings over the next week or two, and you see them pop higher on the news, use that opportunity to short, and it's going to be a higher probability trade. Why? Because, well, the whole healthcare stock is going through this pressure of institutional selling. So any pop is to be shorted in this sector. So some of the specific trading ideas I wanted to share with you is look at this top. Do you remember I was just showing you the top on Humana when it topped in August, September, October? Well, look at this. It's identical, right? Well, in this case, we're looking at AMED. So while a lot of the healthcare stocks have already dropped substantially, this one is just on the verge. It's still close to its top. Yeah, it did have a pretty big move yesterday, minus $10. But if it does bounce, let's say back to 120, this would be a good trade to take. Targeting the level about 100, 105. So there's potentially another $10, $15 move here. But again, depending on when and how you get into this trade will determine exactly how much you guys will make. Divergences are there. The top information is there. I mean, this is a really good chart. from the standpoint of actually coming in and shorting this. Again, you just don't want to short this thing at the lows. You want to wait for a bounce to get in on your position. If you want another example, here's another one right here, HCA. Okay, this one is making a little bit of a bigger move, but there's still potential for drop to about 100 to possibly 97, 98 level right here. And it's huge divergences as well here in the chart. There is a bigger move in the cards in the stock of HCA lower as well. Now, here's what we're looking at today. Clearly, there's some Morgan Stanley. We just showed you the picture of what's happening this morning with that. Some more transportation stocks are reporting. The stock we're really paying close attention to is ASML, which is from the semiconductor sector. And after hours, pay close attention to Las Vegas Sands. That's going to give us a good idea of the earnings reaction to how all the casino stocks are going to be trading. American Airlines reporting. So as you know from listening to the video yesterday, we are bearish on the trucking sector. We're bearish on the airline sector. But a lot of these expectations of higher fuel prices could have already been priced in. So you got to be very careful thinking that the move lower is going to continue, especially if the market is just sustaining this very neutral to bullish levels. And another sector that we are watching closely today and considering again is semiconductor stocks. ASML is announcing earnings pre-market. We're going to take a closer look. In this sector, of course, the usual suspects are NVIDIA, CRX, MU, AVGO, Skyworks, AMD, and so on. So you guys should have that on your winning watch list in the technology sector. All of these stocks would be grouped together for your convenience. Here's ASML chart. Let's take a closer look. Some divergences here. Overall, the chart is extremely bullish, though. As you can see, what we've noticed in a lot of cloud stocks, what we've noticed in the healthcare sector, they're selling off on huge volume. In this case, we're seeing exactly the opposite. This stock is actually moving higher on a higher volume in relation to the sell volume. So this is bullish. You got a bullish crossover, and the divergences, even though they are signs of some divergences, they're not as solid as in some other stocks that we're seeing. So this is actually a rather bullish chart. Accumulation is that it stopped. It looks like it could be heading higher some more. So here's what's happening to ASML pre-market. Pre-market, it is up. However, at the time I'm recording this, 6:21 a.m., it is up on very low volume, 987 shares. So nothing significant there at all. Now, typically, ASML does not trade on any significant or crazy volume pre-market. So we really have to measure the temperature before you guys get into this trade, maybe 9:20 a.m., see if the volume is maybe finally above 50,000. At that point, that would be considered a decent volume, full pre-market volume in case of ASML. So how do we actually trade this? What do we do with this information? Let's take another look at a weekly chart here. Yes, we do have more distinguished divergences here as ASML stock moves higher. We see decrease in volume overall. We do see some huge sell volume, but that was going into the end of December, and a lot of stocks actually had that. So the divergence on the RSI is definitely there. But overall, this is not a very bearish chart, guys, so you got to be very careful. On one end, you're looking at this, you're like, okay, the stock is up from 150 to 203, and in the morning today, it's looking like 207, 209. Like, man, I mean, at some point, somebody's going to come in and sell, but guys, the market conditions suggest every sign that we have observed of the possible reversal got destroyed over the course of the last week. And as tempting as it seems to be wanting to short some parabolic moves like this, right? The main key is these parabolic moves. They are not sustainable a long time, but it does not really tell you, like in the case of AVGO here, right? Another semiconductor stock. I mean, it's up from 190 all the way to 318, 320 level now. And the case here is this chart does not point to the fact that it's going to drop today. Okay, this chart does not point to the fact that it's going to drop tomorrow. So we need to have some further development on the chart to really come in and short this with a higher probability. This thing could move easily to another $7 higher, to 325, before it's actually going to the reverse. But what is important, guys, is that we are getting closer and closer to this reversal point, because some people will come in and start taking profits. And yes, some technology stocks, they are trading at their all-time highs, and they could still move even higher. But the profit taking will take place in the near term. Near term meaning like next week or two, we will see some sellers coming in and taking some profits here. So we will pay very close attention how some of these technology sectors develop further, specifically the cloud stocks, the semiconductor stocks here in all-time highs, because there will be some really nice lucrative opportunities here. So Skyworks, same thing, right? I mean, look at this, just another parabolic move in Skyworks. Another positive bullish crossover. Again, these moves, guys, they don't last forever, but they're certainly taking place right now. And until we get some further bearish developments, it makes it for a low probability trade to come in and short these stocks right now. Now, among the semiconductor sector, the weakest stock still remains to be NVIDIA. As you can see, while a lot of stocks are making a bullish crossover, this one is still trading under the 50-day moving average, and looks like this 200 level could be a significant level of resistance here. Not entirely a semiconductor stock. Another thing to pay attention to today is the Qualcomm, right? Made a huge move yesterday. Look at this crazy move high, right? But it does have a unit. I think overall, this Qualcomm story will actually impact the semiconductor stocks positively today. So we have a lot of bullish activity in this semiconductor stuff going on. It is reasonable to expect that the reversal is near the corner. However, we can easily go much higher for the next few days in the semiconductor sector. So be very careful. If we're noticing that there's two possibilities here, that ASML moves higher on lower volume, let's say you're noticing it hitting a level of 210, 212 on low volume, then yes, this may be the day when they're going to come in and start taking some profits in ASML. Again, the stock is up from 150 to 210. I mean, at some point, they will have to start selling some. The advantage is the put side options, they're going to be very inexpensive. And even with a smaller drop, let's say it opens at 210, it drops back to 205, 203 level, that will be a profitable trade. We don't necessarily need a huge move or a consecutive move here. This could be just taken as a day trade for some quick profits. Now, if it does move higher on higher volume, then we definitely don't want to short this thing. We definitely want to buy calls, especially with all the positivity that we are seeing that is developing in the chart. However, we are close again to be taking some definite trades in the sector on the put side. We really want to see some further confirmations in the sector overall. And this parabolic move, again, is not going to last forever. So the opportunity is just around the corner in this sector. Now, high probability trade today, guys, would be just simply buying Netflix calls. Yes, check this out. Move 13 and Netflix after report. If you've reviewed the video I posted yesterday, I made a bull case and a bear case for Netflix. And if you paid close attention to the video, there was quite a few more things on the bullish side for Netflix. One of the things being the main observation that the institutional investors are taking the money out of stocks like healthcare and utilities, and they're putting them on the sidelines, and they're ready to utilize them. And in the periods of lower interest rate environment, they're likely to invest that money in the growth sector. So what we're witnessing so far this morning, 6, 7 a.m., is we have this huge reversal, right? We said initially Netflix was going to drop, and then they're likely to buy it as long as Reed Hastings, the CEO, doesn't say anything crazy about forward-looking projections being significantly impacted by all the extra competition. So he didn't say anything stupid. He didn't say anything crazy. Business as usual. As a matter of fact, they did give some conservative projections, which analysts interpreted as a positive thing, meaning that there's a high probability Netflix will beat the earnings next time it announces. So it makes sense to actually buy the stock now. So if you're looking for a high probability trade, guys, this is it right here. Simply buy Netflix calls. So right now it's trading at 358. When you have a market move 13, and guys, if you haven't studied the 13 market move 13, definitely review it in the 13 markets move formula so you understand how that works. That actually gives you a high probability of a subsequent move higher. And the importance of a 13 is that it gives you a high probability of consecutive moves higher. So if you're looking to place this trade, we're basically expecting Netflix not just to go higher today, but we're expecting Netflix to go higher tomorrow and the next day, and most likely continue to move higher through the course of next week. So simple trade would be buy Netflix calls in the money. You can split your position. Let's say you consider investing $2,000 into this trade and buy $1,000 worth of Netflix calls for this week and $1,000 invested in Netflix calls for next week. Of course, next week you can target slightly higher prices, a little bit out of the money, maybe 365, 370, 375 calls. Do not buy any calls above 375 because Netflix got a very strong resistance right about 380 level. So, and that's actually the area you should be targeting for this week to try to lock in some gains. So let's say Netflix opens at 360 at 9:30. What you want to do is you want to buy 350, 355, 360 calls on Netflix that expire this Friday with an intention to start taking some gains when Netflix gets to an area of about 377, 385. In that range, you want to start locking in some gains. Now, if we see Netflix start moving in huge volume, again, we've seen huge money come out of the stocks, the healthcare stocks. So if they're going to utilize these funds today, it may open slightly higher, right? Maybe 360. Right now it's at 358. But then we can see a substantial move higher in the stock, like $20, $30. It is possible. And so this could be a highly lucrative trade if this money that they pulled out of healthcare sector is really going to go into Netflix today. So this is the one we're zooming in, that we're focusing on today. This is honestly, guys, my favorite trade of the day right here because it's just so simple. Move 13. The money could have gone out of this stock because honestly the report was not phenomenal. There was nothing crazy in the report. The future projections were conservative, and yet nobody's selling the damn thing. So guys, this is not the time to be a bear, and we did lock some gains, some really healthy gains in Netflix on Friday and Monday, but this is not the time to be a bear in Netflix, not now, because again, if you paying attention, one of the things listed in the video yesterday was like, hey, why are they upgrading Netflix to a buy going into the earnings report? Guys, this is like a very risky thing for an analyst to do, actually upgrade the stock right before the earnings report. The only time they would do that if they've already bought a ton of shares and if they're prepared to buy more in the event if it drops. And that's exactly what happens. Yesterday, after the earnings drops, they buy some more and looks like they're ready to move this thing higher today. Okay, with that said, let's review the market moves. Guys, as bullish as everything looks today, pre-market, yesterday on April 16th, we did have a move 6 with a behavior of an 11. Now, for those of you that are good students and you study the market moves, why would we call it a behavior in 11? Behavior in 11 is a behavior of a pyramid. If you take into consideration the pre-market action, right, if you would draw a line, this is a variation of a pyramid right here. Now, important to observe what was actually happening with the volume. And if some of you are wondering, well, why are we not recording this as a move 2? Because that was a definite possibility. Recording this as 6 because predominantly the whole day, look, we had a kind of a situation where this is where the market opened, right? So it was mainly going sideways for the whole day, and we're seeing the main characteristics of move 6 is, huge sell-off right into the close or in the last 2 hours of the day, and this is exactly what we get. Spike in volume on this bigger move lower, and then, the market does bound at the very, very last minute, but this move lower is what makes it the move 6. So predominantly move sideways the whole day, and then a sell-off going into the close. So it's a move 6 with a behavior of an 11. If you understand what these really represents, it's a topping behavior. Again, this top could potentially give somebody here a heart attack because it's taken its sweet-ass time to actually develop. I mean, we've been expecting this reversal for quite some time now, and it's just not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. And observing the action in the financials where they could have reversed, where they typically would have already reversed and they're not reversing, and now observing this behavior in Netflix, which is to me is just a representation of how the rest of the FANG stocks are going to behave, it makes sense that we're going to see some more bullish moves higher, okay? And we probably are going to witness some more move 6 and 11s before the big drop actually will take place. So we'll monitor this day by day, but predominantly it would make sense to be more on the call side rather than put side today. Now, second 2-day sequence is 12-6. So bullish move followed by a reversal. This is how it looks in the 2-day chart sequence, 2-minute, 2-day chart. Here's your 12, here's your 6. You see how precise, like this move characteristic of a 6, that sell-off, boom, it just happens so quickly, and it happens at the very latter part of the day. Just keep that in mind as you try to study these market moves, guys. Now, 5-day sequence, 10, 5, 7, 12, 6. So after a sequence of 4 bullish days, we finally get 1 bearish day. And this is how it looks on the chart right here. 10, 5, 7, 12, 6. VIX review, low numerically. The VIX actually been doing nothing all day, guys. Yesterday, it was just been going sideways. Yes, when that move 6 came in at the very last few minutes of the day, we did have a spike in the VIX. Initially, it opened 11.8, spiked all the way to 12.4, almost 12.5, and finished the day at 12.8. Overall, it just didn't do anything, just kind of stayed in the middle throughout the day. This is how it looks on the chart. So as you can see, it just, boom, it was just there. Here was that spike when we had a move lower on volume, and then, boom, it just still pulls back after that, finishes at 12.18. So very neutral, very positive for banks to come in this, completely complacent environment and just buy some stocks. Unfortunately, the reversal is not happening right now as we would like, but it does not diminish the probability of a reversal happening in the near future. So the next market move is likely to be a 1, another 6 or 11. So we will be very closely paying attention to see if we are indeed going to get another 6 or 11 after the initial move higher in the market. So if we are getting 2 bearish moves in a row like 6-11 or 6-6, that is definitely something to pay attention to, because that tells us that we maybe, as bullish as things seem to be this morning, we may be a lot closer to the reversal than we really think. Now, if you see Netflix moving like crazy, 20, 30 bucks higher today, you're probably also going to witness Amazon moving higher. You're going to see all the FANG names moving higher. The only one we're not really expecting to move higher today is Apple, because it is being hurt a little bit by the Qualcomm news. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to buy calls, probably stay away from Apple. Now, key takeaways. Financials failed to reverse, plus growth stocks begin to rally. When we add these two factors together, it does not equate to a market drop. So unfortunately, the market drop is temporarily, now I want to emphasize temporarily, on pause. So if volume on upside picks up today, like in case of ASML, pay attention to the volume. Pay attention to how the volume develops. If the semiconductors keep moving on higher volume, hey, we may actually very likely have a few more days up in the semiconductor stocks. So if the volume picks up, be a bull. If the volume really diminishes as they're going higher and there's some signs of people actually coming in taking profits, don't build a huge position, but take a bite of that action if you see some reversals at some point in the day. So number 3, big money is going into Netflix on the bull side. We want to do what the big money is doing, and buying Netflix calls in the money or near the money just makes sense. Guys, with that said, make it a great day. Make a ton of money. I'll catch you guys tomorrow in the next video.